it's the next day. It's another 100-degree day here in Georgia, so it is hot. But I got the transmission and transfer case out. I have already cleaned it up a little bit with a grinder or a stainless steel brush on a grinding wheel or something like that, I don't know. But I'll show it to you because we're about to blast it with some heavy-duty foaming degreaser. And then we're gonna pressure wash it off, get it nice and cleaned up. It's just, you know, 1992 was the year, so it's got a lot of age on it. I just want to get it nice and clean, fresh. Taped up everything, so hopefully we don't get too much water in it. I'll drain the fluids out of the transfer case and everything, but I'm gonna go ahead and get started with that. Heavy duty foaming degreaser. This is oven cleaner, best cleaner in the world. Pro tip, hold it upside down when you spray it, foams better. That's great. All right, so it's washed off, it's out there drying in the sun. Taking a little Mountain Dew break. Let me show you something. During the break, I want to kind of fill you in on something I did. I'm going to be driving to Kentucky in the Humvee, and we've gone from diesel to gas. Gas is more volatile. I do have a fear in the back of my mind of this thing on the side of the interstate engulfed in flames, and I'm losing everything at the same time. So what I did is I went online and I searched for who makes the fire extinguisher for this. The factory fire extinguisher mount that goes under or like below your legs on the driver's seat, and if you have the original seat, you have this most likely, but they take the fire extinguishers out of them. So I went to a company called Triangle Fire, and I found the B500 from Triangle Fire. It's a 5-pound fire extinguisher. It's actually pretty big. That's it right there. It was, I think, out the door 50 bucks, so great insurance. At the top, it has this milled out aluminum neck, which should fit, let's see, right there. Perfect, see how it gets in there? And then this, well, put that under there, go like that. One-handed, so much fun one-handed. So you get that on that, like that, and then just, whoop, there you go. And then now this will sit under my seat or in front of my seat. And so if this thing catches on fire, boom, fire extinguisher. So I'll try to put the link below. It is Triangle Fire, the B500. It's a 5-pound fire extinguisher, ready to go. All you gotta do is pull the pin, you're ready to rock. Thought I'd fill you in because I know a lot of people who buy these government Humvees, they don't have the fire extinguisher. So that is the fire extinguisher. Now let's get back to the transmission. So what I've got here is the new Boss Hog torque converter. Now before I put this in the transmission, go through the process of putting it up, sticking it on, all that, I want to take some basic measurements. So I want to make sure that this snout that goes into the motor is the same diameter, 1.7, and that is 1.7 is what came off of the old torque converter is 1.7. I also want to measure the depth which 0.6, so that is also the same. I've already done these measurements on the other one. And then I went under the truck and I checked the bolt hole sequence. Now on this flywheel there's 3 bolt holes. They make a triangle and they're 10 inches. So if I take this from center to center, 10 inches, and from center to center, 10 inches. So it's going to use the triangle pattern, 3 bolts. I've already checked the bolt that I took out. I've already run through these threads, make sure they all work. And then on the other side, you've got the snout. What you want to do here is just take the cap off and just look around, make sure there's no dings, dashes, you know, spurs, burrs, anything like that. And so I've checked everything. Now I need to take the other one out, inspect it, and then literally put this one in, which I'll show you. This is the Boss Hog 46012. Should be like a 2600 stall converter, and should waken everything up quite a bit. So I pulled the torque converter out of the transmission. It looked good. Everything inside looks good. That is the old torque converter. Now let's get ready to put in the new one. To get ready to put in the new one, we are going to tilt it at a 45-degree angle, such as that, and then pour in 1 quart of transmission fluid. So this, when I crank it for the very first time, this is wet inside and not dry, so it should last a lot longer that way. So I'm going to set you up so you can watch, but supposedly you put it at a 45-degree angle. When you pour this in, you have to go kind of slow. Do this. I'm going to rotate it because of those teeth. There we go. It's going in just fine. I don't know why they said to go slow with it. I mean, I'm not going to just tip it upside down. Ooh, there we go. Let's see here. If I tilt it up. Alright, that's fine. I just don't want to be spilling it all over the place. There we go. So now, I need to take it over and put it in. Alright, I've put some grease on the snout of the torque converter. Now all I gotta do is put it on without it spilling everywhere or messing up any splines. And then we spin it as we push a little bit. It said to hold the... There we go. Alright, let's see. I guess I just need to measure. How that ain't an inch. I guess. Well, I don't think that's an inch. Oh, there we go. There it went. So I had to kind of pull up on it towards the top of the bell housing as I pushed, and it sunk in. So now what I'm going to do is get a straight edge, because I measured the old one and it should be 1 inch from here to the flat surface. Alright, flat, straight edge. Where is it? Right. Well, there we go. Huh. So we are roughly an inch. Not quite, actually. Not quite an inch. We're not quite an inch. Before we were over an inch, so I'm going to play with it just a little bit. touching back there.
Spin it when you do it.
I think that is it actually.
Measure the back of the block.
The what?
Measure the back of the engine because that's what your distance.
Right, bolting too?
Yeah.
Yeah, let me do it with a tape measure. This thing doesn't have, the one starts, well, I guess I could do it like that. The one starts right here.
I would measure from here.
Yeah.
So that on the back of the engine, you can measure from the flex plate
I got you.
to the engine block.
So, yeah, that's exactly 1 inch. Exactly 1 inch.
Okay. So you're looking on the, when you measure on the back of the
Yeah.
engine, less than 1 inch. As
Okay.
long as you have less than 1 inch, and everything will bolt up. Because when you tighten up, the converter will actually pull up just
Right.
a little bit.
Okay.
You don't want to do like somebody did, to where the converter wasn't seated, and when they bolted down the transmission, they snapped the ear off the bell housing.
Oh, very good.
Somebody I know did that once on a very expensive transmission.
Can't imagine who.
Yep.
I'll just leave that be. Alright, so it's in. We'll just check clearance, and we'll put it up in there and bolt it. And it does these two, and this one, and the dowel pins go in, and that's it. All right, so transmission's back in. Got the bolts completed in the upper of the bell housing. Torque converter slips around fine. Got the cross member back in, tightened up. So now I just have to go in and reconnect all the cooling hoses, everything, speedo cable, the plugs for the lights on the or the transfer case, all that stuff. So I'm gonna keep doing that, and I'll check in with you when I get a little bit further along. So the torque converter's in, most everything's buttoned up. I made a few mistakes putting it back in. There's a bracket on top of the transfer case that holds the exhaust, and I just shoved the transfer case up in there so it pushed the exhaust up into the body. No damage done. I just had to put a jack under the transfer case, lower the cross member back down so I could have room to loosen all that up and hook it back together correctly. I also didn't put the dipstick back in, that poor dipstick, so I had to take it back out, put it back in the dipstick to get it all right. Everything else has gone great. The bolts have gone into the bell housing to the block. The torque converter bolts went in great. I did see online that those are only 30 foot-pounds, so I'm going to verify that before I run it. I did use red Loctite on those because the last thing you want is a torque converter bolt coming loose. Let's see what else. All the wiring went back together fine. The speedo cable went fine. You got to play with those a little bit to get them to slide in right. I've still got to put all the linkage, the shifters. I've still got to put the drive shafts back in. I got to fill the transmission with fluid. I am going to drop the transmission pan so I can look and make sure everything's okay. Maybe replace the filter while I've got it apart. I might even drill and tap for a transmission temp sensor so I can keep an eye on the temperature for the transmission, because when I bought this torque converter, they asked me 3 times if I had a transmission cooler, and I said, yes, I do. She said, make sure you have a big one. I said, it's pretty big. It's half the size of a radiator. I think that's it for the most part. So in the next video, I'll be putting everything, all the final touches on it, and then the one after that, hopefully I will be driving it down the road. So thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. I really appreciate it, and I'll talk to you soon.